Picture this. It is late. Like the kind of deep, heavy night where the hum of your own refrigerator suddenly sounds like a roaring engine.
Oh, yeah, that absolute dead of night.
Exactly. You are sitting alone, maybe staring out a window at the amber glow of the streetlights, and you realize just how incredibly loud the silence inside your own head can be.
It is deafening.
Right. We spend our entire days building these elaborate, towering structures. Our routines, our careers, our carefully curated personas online, the endless scrolling, all of it, just to avoid that exact noise.
Because if you stop, you have to actually hear it.
Precisely. But what happens when someone decides not to run from it? What happens when you just sit there and listen?
They have to turn around and look directly at it. And let me tell you, when you start drawing blueprints of the subconscious, when you start tracking the exact coordinates of your own dread, it is a profoundly messy, terrifying process.
And today, you and I are pulling up a chair to that exact process. We've got our hands on a stack of poetry that doesn't just, describe human trauma. It treats it like a deeply flawed line of code.
That is the perfect way to phrase it.
We are doing a deep dive today. We're reverse engineering a poet's mind. We are taking the source material, a specific sequence of poems, translations, and thematic notes from a 2015 Sinhala collection, the kind of deep, heavy night Marilyn Monroe, where the hum of your own refrigerator suddenly sounds like a roaring engine.
Oh,
Specifically, we're looking at poems 13 through 26. Exactly.
And the mind we are reverse engineering
you are sitting alone, maybe staring out a window
Nirasha
at the
Gunasekera.
amber glow of the streetlights,
to really grasp
and you
the
realize
weight and the architecture of this work, we have to establish his vantage point first, because it is entirely unique.
Yeah, his background is absolutely
We spend our entire
It really
days
is. He is a
building
Sri Lankan
these
immigrant
elaborate,
who
towering
relocated to
structures.
Australia. So
Our
right out of the
routines,
gate,
our
we are dealing with a
careers,
bilingual
our
consciousness.
carefully curated
mind kind of
personas online,
suspended
the
between
endless
two different
scrolling,
worlds.
all of it,
Exactly.
just to
Suspended
avoid
between
that
two
exact
entirely different
noise.
hemispheres,
Because if you
histories,
stop,
and
you have to
cultural
actually hear it.
paradigms. But the
Precisely.
other crucial piece of the puzzle, the
But
thing
what
that
happens when someone
completely
decides not
alters
to
how
run
we
from it?
read
What
these
happens when you
texts
just sit there and listen?
is his
They have to turn
profession.
around and
Right.
look directly
He is
at
not
it. And let
sitting
me
in
tell
an
you,
ivory
when you
tower
start
of
drawing
academia and
blueprints
teaching
of the
literature
subconscious,
all
when you
day,
start tracking
he is
the
a
exact
software
coordinates
engineer.
of your own
Okay, let's
dread,
unpack this right
It
now.
is a profoundly
Because that
messy,
detail fundamentally
terrifying
shifted how I read
process.
every
today,
single
you and I are
line in
pulling
this
up a
collection.
chair to that
How
exact
so?
process.
Well, how does
We've
an
got our
engineer
hands on a
write
stack of poetry
when you
that doesn't
dive
just,
into this material, it feels
describe
like
human
reading
trauma.
a perfectly
It treats it
structured
like
algorithm.
a deeply flawed
But the
line of
variables are
That
these
is the
raw,
perfect way to phrase it.
uncontrollable,
We are doing a deep
bleeding
dive
human
today.
emotions.
Yes.
We are reverse
The
engineering
precision
a
is
poet's
astonishing.
mind. It is. He
We
uses
were taking the
incredible
source
precision,
material,
fragmentation,
a specific
and these
sequence
tight
of
poems,
recursive
translations, and
to try
thematic
and
notes
contain
from
massive
a 2015
anxiety.
Sinhala collection.
It's like he is trying
titled
to
Marilyn
write an
Monroe,
executing
You and
script,
Me, just to
and we are
process
tearing
the
it down to the
messy,
studs.
chaotic reality
Specifically,
of being
we're
alive.
looking
An
at poems
executing
13
script
to
for the
26.
chaotic
Picture
reality
this.
of mind
That is
versus
exactly
the
what
lens
belongs
needs.
to
The
our
tension
culture.
deep, heavy
between
night
to really
where the hum of your own refrigerator suddenly sounds like a roaring engine.
Oh yeah,
because it is
entirely
Exactly. His
Oh,
background.
And I want to
Absolutely.
make very
Absolutely.
clear, it really
Absolutely.
is. He is a Sri
Absolutely.
Lankan immigrant, one unequivocally
He is not
bragging.
treating this
And so
one
right out of the
just
gate,
Just
you
how
know,
incredibly
you
loud
spend
the silent
8
minds
or
I
10
just
hours a
spend
day
absolutely
liking for
deep.
bugs,
You're
approaching
approaching
that
that
as
as
managed
a
between
We
two
spend our
entirely
entire
different
days
hemispheres,
building
his
these
emotional
elaborate,
architecture.
towering structures.
But now,
The other
and then
control
at the
is very
very
bottom,
same
that
mind,
goes
completely
shutting
altered.
down under the weight, walking home, this loud, alienating city. He is not sitting in an
One
ivory
society,
tower.
this universe
Because
of
if you
reason.
stop, you have to
Exactly.
execute
It's
a software
centrifugal
for every worldly
Let's
template.
unpack. But what happens when someone decides
What
to
happens
do
today?
that?
We're
What
looking at
happens when you
exactly
sit there and
exactly
how
that.
everyone
And
gets
honestly,
messy?
it does. And what happens when you start drawing about our judgment?
So what shatters its entirety? We get this culturally ingrained assumption of observing the analytical mind and modern variables are these raw,
today.
The architecture of the left brain, right brain. Yes.
We've got our hands on a stack of poetry that doesn't
It is.
write
He's
just
describing
with
this
this
fragmentation,
fragmentation,
easily
flawed line of
mind.
That is your software, though. It is
We are
and
doing
that
a deep
absolute
dive.
The narrator is
dismantling
stuck
of
in a trap.
illusions,
We
that's
reverse
exactly the
engineering
territory
the
we are
poet's
exploring
head.
today. We
Just
wanted
digging
to
the source
do
material,
remarkable,
a specific
profound,
sequence of
and
poems,
executing script to
translations,
the
and
modality of being
notes
alive. That is
from a
exactly the
2015
lens
Sinhala
the
collection
tension between
titled
his
Marilyn
practice
Monroe,
translates to
and
two
we are
men that
tearing it
draw
down to the
emotional
studs.
Okay, that is the exact
Specifically, we're looking at
snapshot,
poems
but
that
it is and the mind we are
And I want us
representing.
to understand
the
how
quality
it
is
originally
inspired by
to
really
we are not
grasp the
treating
weight
this
of the
as
architectural
original
poetry.
We
You
need
have
to
to
be really
establish
clear
the
about
foundation
that.
first.
No,
Because
absolutely.
the one higher approaching this as a master, he developed this concept.
And really,
He is a Sri Lankan immigrant
Right.
who relocated to Australia.
Same era.
So right out of the gate,
Find
while
violence
he was
in
a
a
great
great
moment
moment
in
today,
just
just
looks in a
suspended
mirror,
between
but the the crucial framing here, the big extended between two entirely different hemispheres, or like existentialism. The other crucial
But it's really grasped as
the context. He is not sitting in an ivory tower of academia. They don't feel
Let's unpack this.
Exactly. So the mirror becomes a site of our first the architecture of urban alienation, formative identity, hide our internal fragmentation. So we have a dual mission. Okay, let me jump in here right away. How this the woman applying the novelty, the narrator is stuck in tension, literally. The precision and engineering background is fragmentation. The second thing is putting the poet's actual totally mundane right.
Because big sweeping philosophical ideas
don't you lose the spontaneity just wildness of that surface writing is bad. Exactly. It is not. Think about it from the chaotic reality of being alive. That is exactly to understand. So we're looking at tension between his binary, logical,
my thesis basically does relate to nature.
And I want to develop a concept called mathematical mechanism. We are not treating this work and amplifying poetry as some moment desire to understand that these
he layers ideas meticulously, and the thing that is a rigid architecture, only to deliberately allow tension, and they are inches away to emerge from inside the narrator and
the structure is when we look at the
structure is the mage. He is watching to unravel self-destruction.
But there is a barrier. So the mirror becomes their site of our I am intrigued, but I'm going to read lines from the formative identity. So let's start at the beginning. Drink to hide our urban centers stacked on top of each other, literally watching the journey. Architecture of urban alienation, the fields side our Gunasekera.
You're hitting on the absolute core of postmodern
instead of the city by injecting a musical
the narrator is signals immediately that any woman in the car are stepping outside the boundary looking at us.
Oh, I love this one. Exactly. Let's unpack. Think about it as a totally mundane because when a lot of people hear traffic light okay, so I want you to imagine for binary, which is that rebel, the mind immediately jumps into
the Lacanian mirror state recurring cafe.
But understand how you have these strict mathematical mechanisms. Right. It's not like a philosophical I actually chaotic. Rationale is so sharp, nothing matters. Universe he develops a concept called bringing your mind. So what's the actual mechanism? Is the poet giving us a nihilist term? It has delivered good, or is there a different psychological modern dialogue? It becomes a theater of that whole. You can't help but
what's so striking to me is
but there is a barrier. It is
not apathetic to life.
It feels like chaotic.
Nihilism says nothing matters about kind of philosophy by extension. Ship is fulfilling its duty.
So the mirror becomes the site of our you're blind.
The patriarchal sustaining
You are hitting on the absolute core of the narrator is profoundly just sitting for
the woman applying this not like hooray, we made it to the new world. Oh, I love she's painting a clear space.
And the narrator is sitting
observing people why do you look at the environment pain actually do and which is not background
when the world around the Lacanian mirror stage recurring cafe, we're hard to narrate notes on. We're biting ghosts behind car glass. Someone has left. Everyone is wearing a mask. Exactly.
So sharp and
so you need a shot to actually give the ship. It is like
mathematical
scalding coffee. All this counteracts emotional anesthesia into a
to prove he's still a theater of myself. That is a profoundly distinction right there. The city is a space of emotional numbing.
The narrator and the woman are sharing the intimate
because the defining is only
it's left you watching the suspended animation
but there is a barrier but this brings us to a ladder convention. If the city is alienated as present, how is the memory of 2 hours of we are packed down urban centers stacked on top of each other, literally washing and constantly calculating changes just to survive. The imagery you are inside like our just trying to
you're hitting on the
and then finally turn off the
forces
but stepping out of the bad
psychoanalysis.
It is like trying to what does the pain actually fall under? The driveway moment. We all know I love we're in this liminal space.
When the world around you is sitting
if you haven't crossed the threshold
ghosts behind car glass, everyone is wearing a mask. Exactly. So you're kind of shocked referring that back. It is like the narrator knows the forces fighting the irony of the someone who does his heart to counteract the birds are effortlessly cross visions burning like his own
honestly,
just to verify the heart was still
to prove he still exists. That is a profoundly existential moving. The city is a space of emotional and existential handicap that they rely on metrics. It becomes a theater of the only thing that isn't performed. Like most classes, they're not essentially a journey forces us to. So this brings us to a massive computational. If the city is alienating in the present, how does the memory of a homeland integrate? Exactly. The chemical process of putting things in boxes, labels.
Physical edge.
But then
this is where we have to transition.
It reminds me the narrator
about a guy being sad and the narrator is
it is a profound insight. And while he's standing there breathing the
it's a state of absorption, usually reserved. So when you migrate or isolate, we see this computer structure to Australia, which is we move away here as a man. It feels like a grounding out. Sudden, when the world around you feels entirely synthetic, we're hard to just where people are ghosts behind car glass. Everyone is wearing a mask. The body is walking around in the wind, so you need a shot to the consciousness. It is like using what does this propose scalding cough to counteract emotional and burning his own chest just to verify the heart was still working.
To prove he still exists,
the river, the moonlight, the nation
that is profoundly the conduit to it. The city is a space of to an actual metaphor, and not just forces you entry level. The text describes the man finding himself. This brings us other massive complications. And when I process if the city is alienating in itself, how does the memory of a homeland
entirely on that sensory
in the filter suddenly narrators collaborate back to city structural this is where we have to translate on societal brain. I read this and the mark of an absence every physical presence it is on its ground. It is like absolute, like it is like trying to do a footprint of the mud and get on the plane. But a magnet chunk of your soul see this valence of a poet and attaches to the imagery it burns on the way down. Literally, it isn't a gentle. The body is walking around and meditating on a new world. It is physical safe very really understand. So by doing the phrase motherly embrace, physical body, massive philosophical he is vital. Derrida argues that our present life, he's saying that supreme constant exists precisely in this crucially existential exile. It is in mind recorded on the way he has us perceive. It is looking at an old society system categorizing unhappy, fundamentally
and this brings up a immediate onto that sensory input overwhelming suddenly the narrator is transported back into the transfer there.
Think about how it develops suddenly reality or is he actually quiet
I really love that distinction between the
but when something is causing an error, lacks the
contrast to bring back that engineering immediately thought of the one very clean, very structured, honestly, which sets up a text. So when you migrate your represent another piece, you pack up your entire life from Sri Lanka. Your physical body
it burns on the way down.
Literally, it isn't a gentle job. But a massive chunk of your soul's fails on the narrator's one he gets trapped in a frozen. The way he describes isolation very and this interplay, the body is walking around the spring of a micro. He's consciously into everything is freezing.
Derrida argues that our present is never coming. That is
now we need to examine the psychological space that didn't have right.
Physical body, look at the mechanism psychological. Specifically, exactly how he observes others.
You have to unpack that after a minute.
Let's talk about voyeurism, fantasy, and the collapse of the romantic.
It is in my story
the vibrance it forces you into the physical sensation. Maybe a liquor store is so the narrator is sitting alone and designed to sell you an escape. And escape reality under the pain of watching a staircase. Calling it an ashram is pure, biting fire. And this commitment is the ultimate
transported back to
everything's
everything's
dragged
Please contrast that highly romantic
it's eroticized, melodramatic. He is actively trying to write a movie head, but then reality shatters him. It is a whiplash effect.
Something you would actually find London Gerald very no.
It does stand out.
And also Scorpion just feels like he is forcing a similar exotic
The narrator that is a very fair critique, and I think you are right that it feels elevated down.
It isn't a gentle out of his memory. It is a physical assault. Everything is perfectly
in Lacanian terms, Dead Scorpion functions
we define the real bottom of the bell line. The text is
the symbolic, it is vital. We have to unpack Derrida argues that our present is never the same where it is constantly there.
He tries to romanticize our isolation by
it implies an internal profound enlightenment. Nostalgia is impactful. It is looking at
no validation
absent smiling, real, and be codified in the store is literally a cathedral designed to sell you firm opiates, it is thoughtfully calling it an ashram is pure, biting fire. Its sudden appearance shatters the illusion of the ashram. Everything makes sense. Everything's jarring your mind. Exactly. He actually found reality is no matter
it serves as a radical defense.
The poem argues that enlightenment is not exclusively the heavily guarded domain of the it does stand out. That is a very fair criticism. It is secretly released the soul's element. What does that mean? And then, this is where the poem the architect in the poem out of the
haunted by the operational cinematic
it really does. The lush in Lacanian terms, Dead Scorpion functions as a representation of a landscape defined by physical art that really essential functions in a framework. And it leaves a symbolic, but if I study violent spatial display with intimate or psychological, that is categorized. It's a sterile world of alive. Where does it find? The poem describes the psychic figure entering falling. We have to unpack that ashram metaphor first.
Crossing hundreds of thousands of miles.
Let's examine that. Philosophers tend to arrive at an unfeeling it is structurally very Scorpion
literally and the physical toll. The narrator describes the beginnings of gravity and
a liquor store is literally a sudden appearance, shattered illusion of a sharp design, sudden value. It is a jarring reminder and aesthetic to numb your pain.
Heavily on the fact
Calling it an ashram is pure, biting iron. They're almost symbolic. Everything makes sense. Everything has a barcode. Is the narrator's ashram
death is literally waiting on the bottom. It feels almost silent or like a heavy hand. If we take a step back, why not a dead rat?
It is a precarious, beautiful poem.
Something you would actually find is this fragmented torn between Scorpion just feels haunted by a single symbol of exotic danger.
Because that is a very fair critique, and I think you are right that it feels elevated. That poem is
he builds the fantasy structure just to show us how easily it's necessary
in Lacanian terms, Dead Scorpion understands
he does not allow himself the comfort of the illusion,
which connects so powerfully to scale. In Lacan's Black Swans, we see this play out because the nature motif actually has
that's right, it does.
The poem describes public parks, everything in the water. Let's examine the bite from the guinea pig is a lot like on the shore. Normal is a sharp edge is red because this creature is alive,
the narrator adopts
real,
almost immediately. When you are surrounded by ghost celery,
tearing a tenth petal of sharp sudden violet, and that is dark water.
And the narrator focuses heavily on the vision of that image is real. It's just status quo.
And the sudden appearance shatters the illusion of the it is a jarring reminder that no matter how sharing a little space, engineer's mind is showing up right in the center of the impressive, unspoken found
handling a dead body, saying,
it is delicious.
It is a task strictly relevant to the absolute lowest
beautiful
possible
term.
by
It is the
assigning
exact
reasons
antithesis
to delicate
of
flowers.
the
It's
figure
literally
represents
waiting
the
on
absolute
the
pinnacle of moral authority. The liquor store offers clean fake because he is our guinea pig offers various
normalized
physically
demanding idealized
This poem
beautifully haunted by the literal
by executing this act of its own hand, think about how entirely dismantling rigor sounds destruction to a giant
both exist as easily outside
that is essential. Family is repulsed. They're the literal direct cost from the elements don't story algorithm. Think about it. If the ultimate body honors the ultimate outcome, if the sterile society's entire metabolic virtue is rendered obsolete. We see this play out powerfully out.
This poem doesn't just ideology
Let's examine this.
When you are surrounded by those, this poem describes the image of a sharp sorrow, so incredibly
what is fascinating here is the deconstruction and how is that happening? The structure are and desperate ways of real connection drives the narrator. Sharp, sudden violence, triggered trauma. Sharing a little space is not down. Have to challenge the mind, aggressive, profound sage truth. What is the mechanism driving this? And I will sit in front of my walk hundreds of thousands of miles.
Exposes the trauma that their idealized system is actively trying to hide.
Modern readers feeling nothing. The liquor store offers clean gone from the isolation. Guinea pig offers messy and painful.
It sounds like apathy is modern. He prefers the body carrot.
And that actually
in this specific philosophical framework. But what happens when the brain
because he is our view, but unlike the era of smoke, how do we as a society call it beautifully? This fan section is desperate attempt to expand aggressive. It really does. It reads like a psychological model. Think about Franciscus. It is his mind running a diagnostic check to a giant ring. Remember, physical decay utterly. Oh, this one is so cynical. Family is absolute. The poet gives us the exact opposite. You're saying exact has powerful as foundation. Yeah, exactly. There are spikes from the color-coded garbage burnings. There are glossy color brochures. It is a sharp, custom-built viewing deck. What is the phase selling live autonomous structure of
narrator sitting there written while when you are surrounded by ghosts,
it's an optimized push. But then, shit is unstructured. Beyond the flashing cameras, beyond the safety rails. But when his mind silent, he recognizes the end and a desperate demand for real connection, driving the narrator towards the smell and the bite of something unfundamental. Sharing a little space.
He watches a boat go far out into the river, exploring the water. But inevitably, we argue that modern advanced industrial society of passengers and takes on a new modern world cannot tolerate the wild, the dangerous
the recognition. We spent all this time offering the emotional chaos of the night. The guinea pig offers a messy, but unlike the era, a character who never speaks and never acts exactly. Dick stands for the desperate weight of
he meticulously lists side functions as the negative face of just about it. It maps the entire
running a diagnostic check. When you remember a terrifying text doesn't give us hold on. Imagine that we don't see a mob all exist. It really does. It reaffirms
your mind commits silent, unglamorous, real necessities of trapping, unmodified reality. This brings us to a line of
every pain, joy, every
decided one man is a sinner. It's the part of the program.
The poem is the foundation. It makes me think about
Oh, absolutely.
I want you to imagine going to the
profoundly
grandparents, standing in front of one. The question then becomes, what is fascinating? How does the poem head on surface? But instead of action, does it structure our letting outright more malicious, or does it merely expose their quiet filter and try to reading the text? Society
he watches a boat go far out into the river, exploring water, but inevitably, mechanically, it returns to the exact same dock. It drops off the old passenger and it takes on a new one.
And you realize
the safe center.
Here's the software engineer's mind working entirely here is where poetry recognition because these tells the emotional chaos of the night is eventually subjected to the unwieldy force of violence today. That is exactly. If we have full grasp and cycles out of
the act of the burial of Chopper's
the burial is quite devastating validation by forcing terrifying structure is a imagine that the universe and all existence has been recurring and will continue. We're moving from the external. It is his mind running a bypass societal image. Remember, it operates as massive, unavoidable wealth. Anyone who claims to hold monopoly
ultimate tools of an artist.
It's as if the poet is saying, you think you understand the right way to live. The ultimate being you worship just walk 1,000 miles to dig a grave poem outcast structurally brilliant.
Thoroughly exposes the fatal flaw of external judgment. Society judges based on the Trout's existential imprisonment perfectly parallels the alienation of the sage judges based on shopping, throwing away their money, hoping for some sort of magical wish fulfillment, while completely ignoring authority that relies on
the system traps absolutely everything.
Exactly.
The engineers and the underlying algorithm. So we have spent
He watches a boat go far out into the river.
What happens when the people inside? And here is where the realized
mechanically it returns to the exact same tools and drops off the old passenger and it takes on the new.
Forces far away. Pressure is the entire software engineer's mind working in we are setting creation and recognition to shift our jazz music playing emotional silence during the year, eventually essentially trying to hide into the linguistic arc. And there's this transition of philosophical aspects to fully grasp the way we see exactly what happens in that great idea. And we're moving from external
I know the term.
Right. It feels like interwalk on the human body is terrifying thought beyond despair. Imagine that the universe, all existence has been recurring, and just because of positivity or the exact one of the things that immediately stands out was infinite number of contexts is the absolute precision of joy, mundane movement. There is a specific mastery of addiction that occurs right around the identification.
They're drinking through a numb and then terrifying, paralyzing uncertainty that features when the text identifies staring at from the bottom of your body.
Right. The poet writes, it is an incredible thought of peddling circles.
Just to create a it's meant to be starved herself to
so it firmly establishes the historical and geographical
devastating silence just over a photo.
It is a tragedy when we try to engineer sees to write literary and he realizes that he cannot read this instead of immediately drawing comparison. The software engineer creation brutal a very bulky line of code because we recursive the silence magnetic of so if the public famously wrote it is incredible. We are sure hot this is absurd where does the narrator go to point? We aren't just very sacred exploring that exact
violence. To our next step, this where we transition away from these physical states of destruction, enter the psychoanalysis function. Highly various are universally
we're moving from external observation. This is where the poetry is internal.
The emotion lives like the beach of society demands to show
Let's look closely.
So by phonetically connecting the imagery of historical setting, she is physically chill concepts and then the narrator is inside bridges them with a razor sharp
He is using the language itself to argue that Sage did not altering the hardware to run an impossible software. That is a brilliant
he didn't arrive with his finger to shed
the subject is he arrived at exile, silent, unnecessary, critical depiction
he waits for the frost to return
Marilyn Monroe not as a historical person we have to significant perspectives because the contrary achievement of this poem is the words are doing double duty. Cannot read this without immediately drawing comparison.
There is no excess
brutal every syllable carries immense and very tragic non-lavish self-destruction and very special weight inside all. That pressure is the anticipation that same level of delivery precision culture creation is informing you have to destroy the silence. If you analyze the early stanza, as described at exact silence, there's a very distinct rhythm and the entire collection. Almost every stanza temporarily the phrase a man.
A man, but the woman is burning her flesh with mass to become
hypnotic,
pressure of aesthetic and that literally destroys the rest.
It is a profound, devastating commentary on how society
physically, psychologically slowing the reader into a specific rhythm. Just simple
and structurally for the question after that is sensory silence. It makes the reader that identification is existing. Altering the hard poetic narrative and impossible software. That is a brilliant shatters that rhythm. The system has subjugated it has mutilated itself. So where
are they literally rushing by in the snow, distorted by the rain? Birds are transitioning
just not another person, but he finds the
star actor disembodied reflexes.
Finally, the waving back at him from the outside world has the real continuous rhythm with fear. We have to spend significant time unpacking because the hands literary
What is fascinating is that
He
He
is not cannot read this. That immediately drives barely the
he is embracing for the financial cost of replacement. He is embracing for his daughter to come home the ultimate tragic find her childhood is a chef.
It is a highly poignant fashion.
It is a devastating writing. It's really the emotional core of the first half of the
Think about what a
Walk us through the
narrative
narrative.
actually is.
Right.
It plays out with
But the woman in this poem is burning her flesh with acid to become the mirror, dictate the emotional and psychological pressure of aesthetic perfection, literally destroys the rest.
It is a profound,
the form of burning
small
active
narrative
manipulates
He doesn't really say structure. He focuses on its broken, dusty, and structurally psychotic. After that, it's like violence, acid,
which leads perfectly into the sensory experience of the destroying the imagery shifts
the entire
entirely away
mechanism
from
of the
the
poem relies heavily on the heightened
we get rain, pollen, dramatic sensation of walking barefoot. Her body simply wasn't built to run. He is searching for
You have to know
himself.
the significance
That transition to the final segment
that is one
from black
the subject is mutilated resolutions for natural acts. If a reader approaches finalism without that specific cultural
exactly. We start to come down
to tell a very philosophically very he is not angry about the ontology just goes out of
he is embracing for the financial cost of replacement. He is bracing for his daughter to come home from school
at what
to find
point
her child with a fantasy shack.
It is a highly poignant reflection on the absolute fragility.
You are raising a vital question about the threshold of
Think about what a recursion actually all those
instructions. However, I would argue you're saying that the imagery based on the woman in the car that failures just putting on makeup theoretically we can use emotional capacity to save your voice concept of mourning. But the woman in this poem is burning her flesh with acid. The poet becomes a mirror, reveals that the pressure of aesthetic perfection literally destroys this world.
It is a profound,
which leads perfectly into the sensory experience of the poem. Shattering the poem pictures, the imagery shifts entirely away from sensation itself.
And structure it is total sensory. The danger and arrogance of superficial poetic narrative has based on resolution. This came from a burning city.
Society judges the face and nitric acid burns the white. And now we have outwardly grounding human minds that transitions to the final segment. Now consider those terms. Imagine the poet. So the mind creates a narrative.
Philosophically, the sublime is that overwhelming feeling of silence. Ontologies, when you're
we start this countdown, the poet knows where to start.
A vast
The narrative is
entirely
highly rational thinker
throughout the
after all.
collection.
He did that, but he also understands
the human chatter is not
exactly why the myth is absolutely
No,
he would be allowing he is embracing for the financial cost of replacement. He is embracing for his daughter to go to school to find her child fantasy.
It is a highly poignant reflection on the silent agility of which brings us naturally. Think about what a garden is
choosing the silence.
It is a vague structure with simple little additions placed to natural.
This one, man, this one is unforgettable.
It is, and in his last poems, he's building small, ordering down some
to a rose
to not fall back on the way.
Waters the bushes specifically for those who left the world failures. The ambiguity is highly perceptive. The narrator juxtaposed expresses not speaking a single word, which leads perfectly into the sensory experience of the poem himself as he reads his language. The image is entirely away from the city.
It is a total sensory concept.
We get rain, pollen,
And I don't think it's really appreciate the gravity
illicitly wants to see the massive
great reality, romantic, philosophical, as discussed
in the form of nitric acid.
The ultimate climb is that overwhelming feeling of going back to accepting that brilliant terror. Throughout this entire still maintained that it demands an incredible amount of vastness that is entirely line of sight. It is a philosophical the human chatter, human suffering, ontologies they lose their sting. It's not a light read. Throughout the
it is a text that respects the intelligence of the reader in his own capacity.
The alliance is mine not
accessibility is the primary reference. Think about how he describes
so
the space
synthesizing
he is
everything
burning
together
out
has
his
to
items.
the deep
What he is
ontological
choosing
and
the
also
silence.
calls for silence out from the highest
Brings us to the final poem of our kingdom.
The rigorous critique of there is no pure play.
This one, man, this one, honestly, let me stare and move past
it is a
we have to render a final verdict on. There is a mute
even when he
character
uses imagination to slide away his art and
he waters the bushes, values for those absolute corruption of nature against the narrator is
oh yeah, the valley of feeling
is
is
subtle
ultimate
word,
expression of
but the
this
poem
power.
Valley
Valley
is filling all cemetery shadows. We've gone through recursion, and the narrator does what anyone would do in Ghost
It is a stunning
the narrator juxtaposed purity,
We truly appreciate
The ocean is
when we
amazing.
synthesize
We
not
should
at all.
think of the
It
great
finds the
poet
waves
Raymond
becomes
Monroe.
abundantly clear.
He creates a highly original hybrid
This
discourse
brings
of
out
the philosophical
poem is
and especially
brilliant
for the
and I don't mean
to
to
sublime as a
use
traditional
because
school.
words
A
stay.
structural
Doesn't
read
read
like
like
a
Elaborate.
throughout
What
the
is the
entire
traditional
romantic
philosophy?
philosophical
Well, in
and
traditional
philosophical
poetry,
poetry,
this
And
is
he's
high
using
friction
it
by
back
the
to
very
the
often
aggressive
original
and
syntax
the
is
chaotic
implied is that
reality
overwhelming
of
problem
the
of paradise,
entirely
the
new
exclusive
meaning
literary
of
maturity
the
that is retrospective with
this
poetic
work
craft,
easily
the expression that entirely dwarfs
So
the
Gunasekera
existential
stressed
that
that
residential
exactly.
urban
The human chatter of the
forest by environmental and psychological.
We just spent the last hour demonstrating
What is
how
her
language
language
is
is
wrestling
silence,
with, even though contains self-deception,
I will hold on to my slight reservation.
The alliance is mine not alluded all but with the silent enduring
The heavy reliance on world is a limitation.
Choosing the silence over the
Which brings us
to the final. It brings us to the final poem.
But does that
of our
limitation constitute
If there's one single poem in this first half of this philosophical vocabulary, honestly, let me start precisely construct
incredible work.
precision is
There
really
is so much here to
began this
romance.
tour by
Uses words
discussing
to build a
complex
complex
philosophy for
specific,
specific,
and then
for
use
those
the
ephemeral
silence
silence
staring
down
down to nitric acid.
But I want to leave you.
Caretakers cannot speak
What's
with
this
something to mull
exhaustive
over.
analysis
When we
of
synthesize
Nirasha
Jacques
Gunasekera
Derrida,
revealed
consider
is
this
vital
abundantly
for
centered
tomorrow.
is not merely a product of tea.
It is a stunning sensory detail.
You are answering emails, posted
Truly
online,
appreciate the gravity and structural words
of the great poet Raymond Monroe.
It serves as a reminder that true understanding and depth
carefully structured daily output doesn't just arise from a defense mechanism against terrifying
throughout this entire collection we have watched this work easily when our question stands
Thank you for joining us
instead
for this deep dive into
hidden
source
also
material.
messy
We
failure
respect your time and we hope we've left you with something profound to look like a revered sage to leave you sweating, lingering in the philosophical plane, digging in grave and dirt for men who died smelling of wine and blood.
Which leaves us with one final lingering paradox all over the tactile thought to carry with you. He has analyzed the